Welcome back to the Beyond the Statement mini workshop series where we're focused on diversity and inclusion commitments. On this workshop, we are going to be focused on what is your purview? What is your purview? Thinking about where do you sit within the organization and what's your role? As always, a quick disclaimer, my statements and opinions are my own. Just in case. All right, here's our goal. Identifying your level of impact. Everyone within their organization. I know you're organizational leaders. Some of you at the very top, you don't report to anyone. That's great. Some of you are in the middle. You report to a lot of people. That's great. Some of you are in different entry-level positions, but you can lead from where you are. That's still great. You all have impact. Our goal for this workshop is to identify where does your impact lie and what can you do about it. I want to start off with this tweet. This tweet came from Sheena Allen. She does a lot of amazing things in the tech world, from code development to entrepreneurship. I highly recommend you follow her and check her out. But I love this tweet. It's going to think about it through the lens of a leader. The tweet says, "It's always interesting hearing people's plans and visions, but my favorite language is results." There are a lot of leaders out there that love to just talk about, here are my plans. These are some types of things we're going to do. Where are the results? That's key. That is critical. Where are the results? And crickets. Well, Christian, you got to plan first. I get it. You have to plan first. I get it. You have to put steps in place. But those results are key. If we were talking about your quarterly statements, that money, you focus on results. Everything we do, we need to focus on what are the results? What's going to be that outcome? I used to tell my team when I was over a department at Bethune-Cookman University, I used to say, look, don't come to me with just a bunch of problems. I need you to come with some solutions to them. It changes your lens and your mindset when you look at it from a results-oriented lens as opposed to the problem, as opposed to just a plan. You begin to think differently. You begin to lead differently. Here's an organizational chart. You saw this in the previous workshop. Within this organizational chart, I just want you to think about it through the lens of where are you on your organizational chart. Some of you are saying, Chris, that's at the very top of the peak with our CEO, CFO. Again, it can get bigger. Do you want me cover it? All right, let's do this. Let's cover the screen with a big organizational chart. All right. Find out, based upon your organizational chart, find out where you are. That's going to be critically important as we go forward. Think about where are you on that chart. If your organization does not have a chart, they should. It just helps everyone know where do you fall within the organization as it relates to decision making, also as it relates to reporting and getting things done. Because each of us, no matter where you are on that organizational chart, as a leader, there are three critical spheres. You need to understand each of them. There's your sphere of control, your sphere of influence, and then everything else. The sphere within your control is just that. Those are things that you directly impact, things that you can directly do. Your sphere of influence, that's outside of your immediate control, but you still have some influence within it. And then there's everything else. That's just outside of your influence. I tell my team, and I've always told when I've had different teams, I said, look, and I tell teachers, and I'm telling you as leaders. So I tell everybody, that's the best way. I tell everybody, control what you can control. A lot of times we don't make decisions. We do not do things, especially as it relates to diversity and inclusion, because we love to pass the buck. Well, I can't control that. What can you control? There are some things you can directly impact. There are some things tomorrow you can send out an email and create change. That simple. Then there are some things you can't directly change, but you have a sphere of influence where you can rub enough shoulders and you network with enough people for them to say, hey, we need to think about that a little differently. Then there are some layers within your organization you can't influence. There's some things you just cannot control. No matter what you do, you cannot control them. But it's going to start with, who are you seeing in the mirror? Tell that person to critically assess, what can I control? When you look in the mirror, we're going another workshop coming up. Mirror work versus window work. It is going to be fire. It's going to really make you assess who you are and what can you do. So think about within your organization. I want you to reflect for a couple of moments. And you can, the great thing about this workshop, you can pause it. I want you to really think about, what can I directly control? Think about who is on your team. Think about, if you're in a classroom, your students. And I'm not saying, let's get it, not directly control as in, you do everything I say. No. I'm just saying, thinking about what initiatives you can put forth. What commitments can you make? Then you think about your sphere of influence. To me, what you can control is important. I think your sphere of influence is even more important. Why? Because in what you control, people kind of know who's making that decision. But your influence is so much bigger in a sense, because you can, in that sphere of influence, it's that gray area where if you don't act, nobody would know. But if you do act, people can know, because you're speaking up. You're using your voice. You're not saying, I can't control that. That's not my thing. You can't control it, but you can influence. I love to do this. If you know me, I love to do this. I love to say things purposely to people that are factual and authentic, and then let them marinate on it. Because one thing, when I tell you something, you cannot unhear it. You may not do it. You may say, I don't care about that stuff, but you can't unhear it. My voice is still going to ring in your head. So I love telling people different things, because you cannot unhear what you heard. You all are probably writing that down. You cannot unhear what you can't. That's where that sphere of influence is critically important in bringing about change within your organization. And that also, to me, shows your true commitment. When you go above and beyond, this is my team, this is what I control, I focus on, but no, I'm going to hit that sphere of influence. Then there's some outside pieces you can't control. I tell teachers that all the time. They get frustrated with there are some things that are so big and so systematic you cannot control. But you can control what's in your classroom settings. You can influence what happens administratively. Some of the things when it comes to big picture ticket items as regards to, let's say, which standards we're going to use, you may or may not be able to control that. But guess what? The things I can control, I'm knocking them out the park. Within your organization, I'm thinking now about my VPs. As VPs, there are a lot of things you can't control. There are a lot of directives you can make. Think about, I'm waiting till the homework comes. I'm going to give it to you now. Think about things directives you put in forth of just the past 30 days. A new policy, boom, it had to be implemented. That came from your desk. Are those, hey, I need this by end of business. That is directly, that's something you control. I need this by end of business blank. Same thing with the diversity and inclusion commitments. And the same things you influence within your VP. I'm just saying VP, that's just an arbitrary. No, someone's going to say, I think he's talking to me. No, it's just an arbitrary. VP is just a mid-range position. Your sphere of influence, when you go into executive meetings with the executive suites, you can control what you're saying. You can influence some of the decisions that are made if you speak up. Now, all right, Chris, this VP thing, let's switch gears. Okay. Associate superintendents. Within your role as associate superintendent or assistant superintendent, you have your region that you're over, that you control, but you can influence the superintendent. You can influence the board through the actions that you take. Diversity and inclusion commitments. Everyone plays a role no matter where you are on the organizational chart. You have a role, you have a sphere of control, sphere of influence, and then there's everything else. Today, you got two pieces of things you have to do. You have your regular homework, but then also you have, in-class tasks. That's a good way to call it. Classwork. Your classwork is to develop an action plan. You're going to develop 2. I want you to sit and reflect on what can you control, what actions will you take as it relates to diversity and inclusion. Remember, on who are diversity and inclusion commitments for, we talked about having a goal, having a rationale, action steps, and a timeline. I want you to craft that for things you control directly. Just one commitment, a goal, rationale, action steps, and a timeline for what can you control. Again, you're not watching these series. I do not do lectures. I tell people I don't do these lectures and these speeches. I do things to compel you to act. That's what it's about, that action. Not about just talk and not about just sitting through a workshop. These are great notes. Action. Your second action plan. I want you to develop an action plan for what can you influence. Same format. Goal, rationale, action steps, timeline. And notice the action is in parentheses. In the previous one, it was in parentheses. I'm letting you develop. Start with one, and then you can go to more. But at least I need you to have one. But some of you have that drive and mindset. You're like, I'm rocking and rolling with you. I'm going to do more. That's fine. But you got to have one. You're going to develop these action plans, these diversity and inclusion commitments. Remember earlier we talked about who are they for. Some of you are like, all right, so what do I write them about? You're going to do at least a minimum of two. A minimum of two. One for your sphere of control and your sphere of influence. Your sphere of control, that's going to be possible. That's probably going to be your organizational one. Okay? The one that you do for sphere of influence, that's going to be individual. And you're probably like, what does that mean? Because you're not going to tell your team, hey, all go do this. But you can tell yourself that one. So just something to think about. That one may be more individual. The sphere of influence, because that's something you're holding yourself accountable to doing. And keep me posted on how these diversity and commitments are going. Keep me posted on, hey, I wrote one. Is this kind of what it is? Keep me posted. Keep me posted. Just the best way to do it. On the website, there's a submit a thing. Is it submit a question? I'll flash it up on the screen. Send it in that box and I can review it. Give me some time. But I can review it. But yeah, the submit box. I'm going to pop it up on the screen. There we go. Find that box. It's under the free workshop. Homework. What are my next steps? I'm glad you asked. What are your next steps? Individually, I want you to review your networking circle. Who is being represented? Who is not being represented? Chris, what is a networking circle? Think about the last 10 times you needed something done within your organization. Who did you call? Just think about it. Who is being represented? Who is not? Well, Chris, in our organization, we don't have a lot of, diverse representation. I have to call on Jimmy because Jimmy's the only IT person. Think about this. The world, with technology, the world is flat. Now, I get there's some security protocols. Jimmy for IT, you can't call anybody else. But you can still develop a networking circle of those outside your organization that you have discussions with, have conversations with. Does it make sense? Also think within your organization, Jimmy, we have to go through this structure. I have to call Jimmy. There are other people within IT you maybe can call. He or she may not have the same authority as Jimmy, but think about who are you talking to? Who are you not talking to? Expand your networking circle within your organization, and then definitely outside your organization. Just think about the last 10 people you've dealt with in some format or fashion. Are you willing to step out just a little bit of your comfort zone? I guarantee you'll like it. You won't go back to if you're in a bubble, but you need to challenge yourself to review your networking circle. For me, I purposely, and it takes time, it takes effort, but I love being able to, when I think about my networking circle, I think about different people that I'm trying to provide opportunities to or bring into different situations. Every time I'm looking at different people. And some people will say, Chris, why not go to the same person every single time? Because if I go to the same person every single time, that person is great. They're going to blossom. But there's so many other people that I'm trying to plant seeds with. Well, okay, how's your seed going? All right, how are you going? All right. Because for me, it's bigger than just, hey, let me do one. I'm trying to get a lot of people different opportunities and just show them essentially a different world out there. But I'm constantly reviewing and assessing who is in my networking circle, who needs an opportunity, who doesn't. I don't know. Let me rephrase that. I'm constantly reviewing who is in my networking circle and trying to provide opportunities. You can do the same thing. Organizationally, you knew I was coming back to this COVID stuff. Again, if you're watching these videos in the future, these were made in June 2020. COVID was the hot topic. Here's your organizational homework. Review for the past 60 days the number of COVID-related directives and the number of diversity and inclusion-related directives. Only 60 days. Well, Chris, COVID has been unprecedented. We didn't know what to do. It just caught us off guard. I'm glad you said that. It did catch us off guard. We had to react quickly. We had to make changes. Diversity and inclusion has not caught us off guard. It's been ongoing for years. If we can quickly respond to COVID, why have we failed to respond at all to diversity and inclusion? I'll leave it with that. See you on the next episode. I'm out.